Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Thanks so much for being here. Today we have a special guest, Josh Lee, the co-founder of Chainapsis and the Cosmos ecosystem. We're going to be talking about Cosmos, the IBC protocol, which is a huge game-changing feature coming to the Cosmos world very soon, and just all things Cosmos. So Josh, thanks for being here, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
For sure, for sure. So I guess first things first, I think it would be great if you could give folks just a little bit about your background, how you got into Cosmos, that sort of thing.
So yeah, I've been around in the Cosmos community since back in about 2017. Uh,
Mhm.
that's when a friend of mine introduced me to Cosmos. This was even way before the mainnet. And I just heard of the entire concept of blockchain interoperability. There were a few other chains also kind of mentioning that, but
Yeah.
yeah, just kind of doing my own research, looking into it, I just knew that this Cosmos thing was going to blow up. So yeah, just organized community meetups, um, just telling other people about it, and eventually one thing led to another where I started off as kind of a crypto journalist and got into kind of building wallets, working at a validator, as well as Tendermint. And now, yeah, now I'm just building Kepler wallet, which is one of the largest Cosmos wallets, and we kind of allow application-specific transactions to happen on Cosmos.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, I guess how have you seen since you've been around for since Cosmos's early days? How have you seen the project grow over time?
Yeah, I think first of all, let me say that like Cosmos is one of those projects that don't cut corners, and I
Mhm.
think this has been true from day one. Like the fundamentals have always been incredibly important to how Cosmos built its projects, and this all comes all the way down to from the consensus engine, the Tendermint, as well as the state machine Cosmos SDK, and now yeah, even IBC. So each of these layers, everyone who's building Cosmos are making sure that it's sound, and the architecture itself is well designed. And yeah, sometimes I think that means from the outside, it looks like things are slow. But when
Mhm.
you're kind of looking down deep into it, eventually someone's going to run into issues that people that are building Cosmos already thought about, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, and they kind of settle down into that architecture that Cosmos is already building as well. And yeah, just way more developers who are building on it. Um, and a lot of people kind of mention the community, but I think what's even more important is the community of builders, and
Mhm.
that has grown tremendously, I think, in the past 3 years or so. And yeah, and it's not stopping anytime soon. So
Yeah, it's powerful stuff. I mean, I've seen, there are projects that maybe were starting early on, maybe in 2017, 2018, that might not have been committed to Cosmos that are now fully, invested in the Cosmos ecosystem. I think that's a testament to both the vision up front, of blockchain interoperability, which is not an easy problem to solve, but that there's been follow through on a lot of those mission driven ideas. And it's been really impressive to see the project start to deliver on a lot of those really, uh, really awesome aspirations. And I
mhm.
think that that brings us to one of the biggest points, that people are speaking about right now, and that's the inter-blockchain communication or IBC protocol. To me, that's the bread and butter of the interoperability vision. Could you give folks like a, quick introduction to what that is?
Yeah, absolutely. So Cosmos' vision is to create the Internet of blockchains. And what this means is that you would like data to go from one chain to another in a very permissionless manner. So I know there's a lot of token bridges, layer twos and things like that. But in a lot of these cases, what's happening under the hood is there's some sort of uh, bridge mechanism where whether that's a multi-sig or some type of threshold signature scheme where there's kind of someone in the middle basically telling the other chain that this is what happened, and the other chain kind of assumes that's correct because a lot of times that's kind of how the security mechanism is. Whereas I think for Cosmos, it's game changing because IBC is one of those very basic protocols for the entire blockchain space where there's proof that something that has happened within the data that's being moved back and forth. And yeah, it's kind of like we like to call it the TCP/IP for blockchains.
Mhm.
Um, it's kind of one of those things where it's general enough that there's additional things beyond just token transfers that can be built on top of it. Yet at the same time, it provides enough guarantees uh, between blockchain inter-blockchain communications where it doesn't rely on a set of multi-sigs or some type of oracle to solve it. It's actual blockchain data that's being sent between different blockchains.
Got it. So there's sort of an element of letting the blockchain networks that are all in this ecosystem remain self-sovereign and to rely on their
Mhm.
own security guarantees and the security guarantees of the communication between the two, rather than having to delegate that to some sort of third party.
Absolutely. And I think that's also super important because I think for Cosmos, we provide a gradient or we provide a choice where it's not a binary choice between your own chain and your someone else's subchain.
Hmm.
There's a wide kind of range of selection that you can select between the two, and depending on your application and how big it is, how secure your validator set is, etc., you can kind of choose the right solution for your blockchain or your application at its current stage. And I think that's also incredibly powerful.
Yeah, for sure. And one of the things that I admire about Cosmos is that many projects have this incentive to try and build the most impressive features first, the most marketable, the sexy features, and that's something like IBC, right? The grandiose vision, the grandiose delivery. But Cosmos took the pragmatic approach and sort of looked at first principles, in my opinion. It's like, what is the composition of a high performing blockchain with all the characteristics that you want, fast finality, adequate consensus, that sort of thing. And so there's that foundation that was built, that tech stack. You have the Tendermint BFT engine that does networking consensus. You have that interface, the ABCI layer that connects to the Cosmos SDK. That's like the secret sauce. You build the blockchain that you want, and that was the foundation of now where we are today with interoperability. I think it's brilliant to work backwards like that. What do you think?
Yeah, and you hit it like right on the you got it like right there because like when you're building an electric car, like you're probably going to have to start with highly performing motors, batteries, and things like that. And you kind of work your way up from the
Mhm.
most basic, most crucial component to building the car itself. And after the car is ready, that's when you kind of start working on maybe some of the AI software to make it self-drive and maybe talk
Yeah.
to other cars to make sure that there's no uh, potential collision happening and things like that. And you work your way up. And I don't think that's any different in building blockchain software at all as well.
Yeah, it's a powerful way to build things is to start from the most basic level and work your way up. And so,
Mhm.
if you look at the history of Cosmos, it's not surprising that now there's starting to be traction. And one of the things that I wanted to ask you about and get your opinion about in that regard is, there's the presence of a zone in Cosmos. There's one called EtherMint, and it's like a fully Ethereum compatible. Um, Essentially, it's a blockchain, right? And it runs on the Tendermint BFT engine. It's much faster than the current Ethereum proof of work network. Do you think that would be a place for decentralized application developers to find a home in the meantime while Ethereum is not so scalable?
Yeah, I think, and it's also might be more attractive to certain application more so than the other because
Mhm.
people assume that Cosmos and Ethereum are competitors, and I don't think that's 100% correct because Cosmos, like at its fundamental vision, is to kind of connect and live harmoniously amongst the other blockchains as well. But with things like Ethermint, like if you're building some type of gaming application with Solidity and on Ethereum, it's very likely that you will need a lot less of a security guarantee than maybe having per finance or Uniswap where there's actually a big amount of money flowing back and forth, and you need that security, right? And
Hmm.
EtherMint kind of provides that other, it's sort of like a layer two solution with interoperability as a bonus, where
Hmm.
if you need a high performant chain and you don't want to pay a ton of money for it, EtherMint provides that solution. And what's even nicer is that, EtherMint isn't just a chain, it's a module for the Cosmos SDK. So maybe you could just build your own zone and all you'd have to do is just port over your already working app on Ethereum onto EtherMint. Or maybe for some of the monetary transactions, you can use Ethereum, but for some of the more um, low economic value transactions, you could complement that with EtherMint as well. So there's like I mentioned, a gradient of choices, which I think is really important.
That's amazing. And the first thing that I think anyone should take away from that is the point you made about competition, right? I think that it's very easy for people that are on the surface that are investors in projects to think, you know, my favorite project's win is only possible at the expense of others, and I would like to make it clear, and I try to in every video, that that's not generally the case. There may be certain instances where some projects don't succeed and others do, but that's not because they've taken success from someone else. And
Mhm.
Cosmos is such an anti chain maximalism product in and of itself.
Yeah, absolutely. And if someone's selling you that like this is the perfect blockchain with no trade-offs, they're lying. And
Yes.
for Cosmos, it's like we come to accept that there are trade-offs to different types of design.
Mhm.
And different applications and different people might be okay with one, but maybe not the other. And there's a big range of people like that. So what's important is that these blockchains are able to talk to each other rather than trying to build the perfect blockchain itself.
It gives you the freedom to build to your own specific use case and make it purpose built for your use case, to say, here's how quickly we need to quiesce on blocks. Here's the security guarantees that we need. Here are the governance modules that we need. And you can choose
Mhm.
what you need rather than conforming to a general framework.
Absolutely. And I think it actually really mimics how like countries are built like in real life as well. Because different governments have different frameworks and rules and its own culture and things like that. And with modernization, it's very apparent that even though different countries have different economic rules, governance rules, and culture and things like that, there is global trade going on, and this is kind of how the entire world moves forward as a whole. And I think that's very similar to how we see the blockchain space moving forward as well.
I can definitely see the echoes there. And I think that brings us to a great next point, and that would be, from your perspective, someone who's very closely ingrained, building out one of the most important wallets in the Cosmos space. Where do you see the project going forward from here now that, IBC is basically upon us, and, things are going to start to come together? What's your vision?
Yeah, that's a great question because I think without IBC, people were able to essentially build out countries and their own applications,
Hmm.
um, but essentially it lacked the ability to trade with other countries.
Hmm.
Um, and I think IBC finally unlocks that key where global trade is now available, and and that essentially means that not only do you need to have a very competitive zone by yourself, but now you have to kind of look at the scope of the entire world when you're building your applications. But this also means that your addressable market and the resources that you're able to use are increased by 10x, 100x, and the speed of growth will only increase from here. Um,
Hmm.
and it's the first time where a natively multi-chain environment is basically competing against some of these everything goes on a single chain type of narrative. And yeah, and for me building a wallet is exciting because the wallet is the first gateway to how users interact with the blockchain,
Hmm.
and it's the first gateway where the blockchain interacts with the users as well. So, when people are using blockchain, I think a lot of people, for the very average user, I would say, it's like, what is the blockchain? Like, they're probably just going to say, oh, it's just MetaMask and this website, right? They don't see this bunch of machines running in the background and things like that. So,
Yeah.
yeah, moving forward, how do we abstract that? How do we make that simpler? How do we make that easier to use? Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a great point. You think about from the wallet design perspective, it's not even as simple anymore to say, okay, you're going to submit a transaction through MetaMask, you're going to get maybe a response back, a revert message back, or your block's going to get mined with your transaction over time. Now that transaction might span across multiple self-sovereign networks or countries, as you referred to them, and that from a wallet perspective is going to be important to give the user enough information so they know what's going on, but maybe not make it as complicated to configure.
And it's the thing that I'm like wondering the most about, because it's the first where a multi-chain environment is native,
Hmm.
and whereas all wallets I think so far have been built from the ground up with the idea of supporting one blockchain. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's a new area that we're hoping to pioneer and make strides on.
Beautiful. And so when you are working through that problem and you have some solutions, I'd love to have you back on the show and we can
Yeah,
walk through them with
absolutely.
folks on the show. That would be amazing.
That sounds like a lot of fun.
Perfect. And so with that, folks, I just wanted to say, a big thank you for watching. I know Cosmos is one of the, most exciting projects out there that folks have been asking me about in the comments. If there are questions that you have for Josh or about Cosmos, leave them in the comments below and we'll get those answered. But Josh, thanks so much for being here, my friend.
Thanks for having me. It's a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Take care, everybody. Have a good one. Cheers.